Hello everyone, it's Anna here, your macrame artist and teacher, and today I'm starting a project that will most likely be the very last one I do before the baby comes. As I'm filming this, it's Thursday, April 25th, I think. The due date is May 6th, so really, 10 days to go. So we'll see if I actually get to finish the project before then. So here is a little spoiler from future Anna. I did not get to finish the project before having to rush to the hospital on my due date to deliver our little baby girl. You may or may not have seen the post on my community tab. So we now have our little bundle of joy with us. Her name is Sarah and she is a very healthy baby girl. In the post, I've also mentioned that we have decided with my partner that we don't really want to show our baby in any of these videos. So if you were expecting to see her, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that's just the decision that we took to protect her privacy. And so that's what we want to do, at least for now. And with this great news out of the way, we can go back to the project. What I will be making today is a macrame curtain, which I've never done before, but I mean, it's just a very long wall hanging, so not that different from projects I've done in the past. I'm actually doing this for a customer who has previously bought two of my other pieces. So he requested this curtain for his window. So something that's kind of see-through, but also it blocks some of the sunlight. So that's what I'll be trying to make for him. For the supplies, I've gotten this piece of wood from the customer himself, so he actually stained it as well, and it's about 85 centimeters long, so this pretty thick piece of wood that I'll be hanging everything on. And then for the cords, I've got 3 different ones going with a color combination of one of the pieces that he actually purchased with one slight difference. So the main cord is going to be this 5mm single twist in sand. Then I've got this, again, 5mm but 3-ply in avocado. And then for some little parts and accents, I've got this one 5mm single twist again. And I believe this is coffee, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe the color is called something else. This is the only change as opposed to the other piece, which was this one. That's the one that he already has. And as always, all the measurements and lengths you can find down in the description of the video. And one more thing before I get started, I wanted to show you the sketch of the piece that I made. This was part of the kind of back and forth process that I had with the customer when he gave me, described a general idea, and then I tried to sketch it out to see what he thought of it. So obviously the middle is the avocado, and then everything that you see in just the pencil, that's going to be the sand. And then all these little points in there, those will be berry knots from that coffee. Maybe Mocha? Was it Mocha the name? Maybe. So the plan is for me to start with that green in the middle, then do these other braids on the sides, and then add all of the cords that are just hanging down with the berry knots on them. So I'll get cutting with my avocado and then I'll show you the first braid that I'm making. All right, I've already made one side of that first braid, and you might recognize this pattern because I've used it in that wall hanging as well. And now I'll show you how to make it on the other side of that braid. It starts very simple with one square knot at the top from the middle cords. And by the way, I definitely recommend putting some tape on the ends of the cords, as they are 3-ply. They will unravel as you are making the knots. Once the square knot is done, we will work on the left side first. taking this cord, the left cord from that square knot, and doing a half hitch on this cord in the middle. So going around it like this, and then bringing it out to the front again through this little loop. And we will tighten that. We will then take this next cord in line and do the same thing, just wrapping it around both of these cords now. So wrap it around and bring it to the front. And tighten quite a bit here. And then we do the same thing with that last cord as well. To continue, we will do the same thing, just reverse. So instead of going to the front, this time it goes to the back, wraps around the cords, and goes out the loop again. Then we leave this cord be, we take the next one, and again do the same thing. So behind those two cords and out through the loop. And then the last one at the bottom. So that's one side done. Now let's do the other one. So first at the top, we're going from the front and wrap around and out through the loop. Now the next cord. This time leaving a little bit more slack there, not making it as tight as this side. And then the last one. Okay, and the bottom side, so going behind the three cords and out through the loop. Then drop that cord and do the other two. And we finish it off at the bottom with another square knot. And then we start the next section. So this is just like the square knot up here. So then we start wrapping the cords like that and so on until we make enough diamonds in the pattern. Now, one thing I want to highlight that you hopefully noticed is that I tried to make this side a little bit tighter than this side. That's something I always do whenever there is two sides to a braid that connect in the middle, because eventually this will be a little bit tilted. So to not have any like bulging cords right here, you want to try at the very beginning to tighten them a little bit more so it kind of very naturally falls to that side. So hopefully you can see the slight difference. It doesn't have to be big, especially here because the two sides are very close to each other, but still there should be some difference there. So I've moved ahead a couple steps. I have finished the green section, or both of the sides, let's say, but I haven't connected them. They're still separated, and that's because I'm not sure if this is the final length or if I will still be adding some of those diamonds down here. And then I've added the other braid so far on this side, on the right side. Again, both sections not finished at the very bottom, and I've added the cords for those braids on the other side, and I will show you how I'm making that braid. As you can probably see on this side, it's a super simple braid with just some square knots and some twists in between. So the only thing that makes it a little bit more challenging is the fact that the cords are so long. So it really takes a while to pull them through, and they also get kind of twisted a little bit. And so that's just a little bit more time consuming. And as you can see, I made sure that these two braids that are next to each other, I have the square knots facing each other. So they're not facing the same direction, they're facing the opposite direction. So once I'm done with this first one, I'm taking the outer cords, twisting them inwards, and then just making that same square knot again. Now you don't want to pull them all the way up. You kind of look at the other side and make sure that they are symmetrical. Just like that. And then again, twist inwards and make the square knot. And like this, I just keep going to my desired length. And I am done with all the braids, the green and the beige ones. And you can also see that I've added all of these extra cords in there. They are just gonna stay in there like this, and later I will add on the berry knots. But first, I have confirmed with the customer that he's happy with the length of the braids. So I can now go ahead and actually connect them at the bottom. So I'll show you how I am doing the gathering knot on this green one. And then for these ones, the beige ones, I don't know how much you can see it from this angle, maybe a little bit as well. It's not very straight, the braid. I don't like how it's like wobbly, wonky, I don't know. So I thought that maybe what I could do is actually twist each of the sections like this so that it's twisted on purpose, essentially, and only then down at the bottom, once both the sides are twisted, I am going to connect it. So I'll try doing that before putting in the gathering knot, and then I will probably start on the fringe of the green braid, and I'll show you again what I'm doing there. So to make this gathering knot, I'm going to overlap the two sides of the braid over each other like this. And then I'm taking this sand cord just to have some contrast down here, and I'll make the gathering knot from this. So I'm taking it to the back of those braids with just a little bit here, but most of it down here. I am making a loop like this and holding everything together in the back, and then I'll start wrapping this cord around all of these avocado cords like that, making it pretty tight. All right, I think 5 loops look pretty good. So then in the back, I'm going to loop this through here, and then I'll pull on the short piece that we had at the top until all of this slides underneath all those wraps that we made. And that's making it very tight and secure. So that's the one on the avocado braid. And for the beige braids, I'm actually going to use the avocado cord to make that gathering knot at the bottom. So the braids are connected and finished. Now for this avocado fringe, I will be using the avocado cords, which I will be adding with the lark's head knot to all of these cords on the very outside of both of the sides of the braid. But before I add them, I'm actually going to unravel all of them, and I will be adding these then like smaller or thinner cords, just because, again, like the visibility through the window, we want to keep that. So that's why I thought unraveling the cords like this will mean that it's more see-through in the end. I've put the fringe on the avocado braid, and then what I did, because I felt like it was very close and just super narrow, I actually pushed the braid a little bit further on the piece of wood, which here I'm very lucky that the piece is relatively straight. Like there are no big bumps or lumps in the way. Otherwise, I may not have been able to get the cords over it because they would be too tight. But here I was okay. I did have to rearrange some of these beige cords, but that was fine since there is nothing on them. There are no knots, so I could just easily take them off, replace them, reposition them, and then push those avocado braids apart, which I think does make it look a lot better. And now we can move on to those berry knots. So as you can see, I've added one of those berry knots, and now let me show you on this cord here how to do it using a completely different color, completely different cord like here. So I've got two of those mocha or dark brown cords. You can see that the outer one is the longer one, the inner one is the shorter one. You can find the lengths in the description always. Now what you're going to do, and it is a little bit tricky, so take those two cords, wrap them around whatever cord you're adding them to, and then these are going to be the inner cords, and these are going to make our square knots, which is what we need for the berry knot. So you are now going to make a square knot, but the tricky part is you have to be careful not to tighten it completely because we will need at least a little bit of a gap right here to pull then the cords through. So that's one half of the square knot, and then the other. Now we make two more square knots. And now that we've got the 3 square knots, we want to pull these 2 middle cords through the gap that's up here. Now you can do that just with your hands, but I definitely find it's a lot easier if you use a pair of tweezers. So what I do is I pull the tweezers through, then I kind of put the cords into the tweezers, careful not to damage them, and then I pull them through the gap, kind of wiggling them out. Making sure they're not twisted or anything. And then as we pull on them, you will see how this creates the berry knot. Now at this stage, what you would normally do is make one more square knot right underneath here. However, because I will want to wrap the cords kind of to the back, and that's where I'm going to clean them up, cut them, and use my hot glue gun to glue them to the back of it, I will also make that last square knot at the back, which means that I'll pull these beige cords kind of to the front and try to ignore them as I make a square knot with those dark brown cords. And there you have it. You can see the square knot down here, But from the front, it looks quite clean. And then once I sort of wrap them and glue them there, you won't even notice the difference, or it will really be impossible to see those cords in the back. And the really nice thing about adding the berry knots like this is, as you can see, I can slide the berry knot on my cords. Even though it's done, the knot is finished, I can slide it to wherever, whatever position I need it in, which is something that will be really useful because now I'll try to add the berry knots all over these beige cords, but I'm not 100% sure yet where exactly I want to place them. So if I am able to move them at least up and down like this, it's going to make things a lot easier for me. So that's what I will do now. Then I'll cut all of these cords short, glue them to the back here, and I will be done. And here we are about 2 weeks and 1 baby later, and I have finished the project. Now, so you can see that I've actually cut all of the leftover cords from the berry knots, and I glued the rest of the cords to the back. Now, I am not really that happy with the end result, to be honest. I just don't, I don't know what exactly it is, but I don't like, so the one thing I don't like is that the berry knots, they are like turning around on these. So one mistake I think that I did is that I should have used braided cords for the sand color instead of the single twist. I think that would help the cords to not twist like this, and therefore the berry knots wouldn't twist as much, I think, at least. So that's one thing I would have done differently if I could go back now and redo it. But also, I think maybe even that wouldn't have been enough. I think it's because every time before that I did this, that I added the berry knots, they were never like just individually hanging on some random cords like this. They were always like part of a pattern somewhere. And so there were like other knots and other cords around them kind of holding it all in place. So I think that this just was a mistake in the design that I made, that this was never really going to work. So I'm not too sure about all of this. Now, what I've done is I've took a picture and I've sent it to the customer to see what he thinks. He might be happy with it. Maybe he does like it. So I'll have to see what he responds. I do have some ideas about how I could rework this, but for this tutorial, I am going to end it here, giving you this last piece of advice. If you want to redo it, I would swap the cords for braided, or maybe just do something else with the berry knots. But this is it for now. If I do redo it, I might post a picture at least of the final result into the community tab or something, so you can see if I'm making any changes to it. But anyways, I hope you did enjoy the tutorial, regardless of my opinion on the final result. And I hope that some of you will find some inspiration in this, as always. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.